So we are continuing with our spot illustration project. So far, this is what we've covered. We did just a regular pencil sketch, and then we did digital inking in order to get clean line art. And the goal of the digital inking is that the line art will be a vector at the end of the day. Whether you ink it in Photoshop or whether you ink it in Adobe Illustrator, it all gets brought into Illustrator in order to be turned into a finished vector. So the bulk of last class was showing how to use the blob brush, how to control the line art in Adobe Illustrator. So if I open up my project, my assignment 5, I'll just remind you of that. And I'll do that with this test. Okay, so this is a little JPEG that I saved from Photoshop. I digitally inked it in Photoshop. You'll see how this is different than the helicopter I inked in Illustrator, because Illustrator gave me a little bit better control. But let's say I want to turn this into vector line art. Right now it's just a JPEG because it was inked in Photoshop. It's pixel based. So if I zoom in, I see those pixels. Right? So let me review, if you're at that stage, how I can put it into Illustrator and then how I can add to it if I want to. I'm just going to crop it a little. Okay, so what do? I take that JPEG out of Photoshop. I've already turned off my sketch so it's nice and clean. So it just shows up on the white background. Here it is. And I'm going to open up that inking from Photoshop in Adobe Illustrator. Just like I would open a sketch for a logo that I wanted to trace vectors on top of. The difference is because I inked this in Photoshop, it's already pretty clean, but it's still pixel based, right? And I want to turn it into a vector because we want vector line art for this project. So I use my large selection tool, which is the black arrow, and I click on it to select it. Notice you don't see any anchor points, again, because this is an image. You know, it fills the whole rectangle. So then under properties, once it's selected as an image, I go to image trace. You'll have that option if you select the image and you don't have it locked. Image trace has a bunch of presets. The one we're always going to use is black and white logo. Because this is called vectorizing. It's taking raster image, pixel-based image, and turning it into a vector. It does not work well on color, right? It definitely doesn't work well on kind of gradients of color because it will chunk them into solid shapes. It ends up looking like camouflage. But it can work well in very limited color. So if I just had black, gray, and red in my design, and I vectorize it, then I could choose 3 colors here, right? And it would do a black vector, a gray vector, and a red vector. But for this, I just want black, and there's no black shape vector setting. Instead, there's black and white logo. And then I want the advanced options. But even without the advanced options, right now it is previewing it as a vector. And you see it does a pretty good job, Adobe Illustrator, where I no longer have pixels. And it looks like what I drew. But if I need the advanced options because the problem is this has white and black shapes. So once I open up the panel here for image trace, I then open up the advanced options on that panel with this drop-down menu, and the one I absolutely need to check is ignore the color. And it's going to ignore the background color automatically, which means this is now just black shapes being previewed, no longer black and white shapes. This allows me to adjust it. That's why it's still a preview. So if I think the lines are a little too thick, I can take the threshold down and it will be less sensitive. You see how the lines are thinning out? If I think the lines are too thin and maybe broken up, I can make the threshold more, and that will thicken the lines. So you want to find kind of the Goldilocks zone for your vectorization. In my case, with this, it's the skid on this helicopter. I want that to stay pretty open, because if I make it too thick, that closes up. Right. So let's say about there. And then I could play with these others as well, like soften the paths, soften the corners, and allow for less noise so I don't have little shapes like that. And then when I'm ready, I hit expand and it changes it into a vector. So if I use my small selection tool, I can now see the anchor points. Okay. So my favorite way to ink is to use a tablet, just like you would ink in Photoshop, but to do it all within Illustrator. And I have two tools I love in Illustrator. And my favorite tool is the pencil tool, which you can double click and you can set to be more smooth and accurate. But this is why I love this tool, because it fixes things. So like this, I don't like that little lip that's there, so I can use the pencil tool as long as I can see the anchor points. I can redraw it, start on the path, end on the path. It's like magic scissors, like that. What if I want to redraw the inside of that shape? Well, I don't see the anchor points yet, so I'm going to hold down Command. That will get me to the last selection tool and click, and then I'll see the anchor points on the inside there, and I'll start on the path, and I'll end on the path, and it will redraw it for me. So I love me some pencil tool. But the pencil tool is not able to do everything. So for instance, if I want this to be opened up, if I hit Command to see the anchor points and then use the pencil tool to redraw the inside of the blade here, it opens it up, but you see how it swapped that out. So you can play with the inside and the outside of the shape. But there's no way I can use the pencil tool to erase that. So for that, I need to select it and then either delete it with the delete key. Or what if I want this all to be open space? This is where students sometimes get into trouble with the pencil tool. They'll start redrawing and they think it all connects. And it doesn't all connect, right? Because that's a different path than that path. So it just made a new empty path for me. So I did Command Z. So instead, what do I need to do? Here, I need to use the eraser tool and open it up so it is all the same path. And now I can use the pencil tool to clean it. So there's always little tweaks that happen when you vectorize. So the eraser is good at removing. So I make that the same path, make this the same path, make this the same path. Right. And now I can use the pencil tool to clean within those rotors. Like so. Like so. Like so. Okay. And then I can't use the pencil tool to delete that, but I can select it and then just use the delete key. The pencil tool is also not great for actually doing your line art, right? It's great for correcting it. But if I try to draw something else, like another little cloud here, little bead of smoke, I can draw it, and that works pretty well. Now it's an empty path. I can fill it with black, but then I have to draw the inside. And there's no way I can draw the inside, right, from the outside path. So what do I need to do? I would need to erase and then redraw that inside. And that's a pain. Or I'd have to draw another shape and overlap it and then use the Pathfinder. So this is where we learn another tool. That's my second favorite tool in Illustrator, and it is the blob brush. And just like the pencil tool, you can double click it. You can set it to be more accurate than smooth. You can also make it just like a brush in Photoshop, whatever size you want, and you can make it pressure sensitive with your tablet. So now it becomes an inking brush. And if I want to do another cloud, this allows me to go thick to thin. And what it does is it makes a fill path. So when I select it, you'll see it has an inside edge and an outside edge, all in one step. And if I paint more, it just adds to that stroke. That's why it's called the blob brush. It's like blobs of ink flowing into each other. So it's just ideal for digital inking. And it smooths as it goes. It's perfectly clean. So between the blob brush and the pencil tool and the eraser, you can really get nice line art that's controlled within Illustrator. All right, what if I want to thicken the lines I have? This is also another benefit of Illustrator. Well, I can turn on a stroke because I just inked it too thin, right? But I don't want to have to re-ink it. So if I turn on the stroke for it, you can see it has a black stroke. I go to Properties, I can control the thickness of that stroke. Now notice what happens. All I wanted were curves, but sometimes when you do strokes, you'll get little spikes. That's because it's being projected out from the anchor points. So when that happens, you go to Stroke Settings here, and you can round out the corners there instead of having them pointed at direction changes. And here you can also choose, just like you can with layer styles in Photoshop, whether the stroke projects out from both sides, which is the default, or whether it works only on the inside, or whether it works only on the outside of your lines. And then once you're happy with it, what you have to do to make this all your inking, you see I like it that width rather than the width without the stroke. So what I do is I select it. This would be it without the stroke, right? And then this is it with the stroke. Now I need to not have any strokes by the time I use this in Photoshop to color it, because strokes output themselves at whatever point level you have, no matter the size. So strokes are not scalable like fill paths. But what we do is we turn the stroke into a fill path. So I have something where I like how the stroke looks. It's thickened my lines in a way I like. Then I go up to Object. I go up to Path. And I say outline the stroke. What outlining the stroke does is make it its own fill path. It's no longer a stroke. So it's a little complicated, but this is how it looks. That is what the outline stroke looks like. It's just a fill path that was the stroke. Now it's a fill. See how there's no stroke. So that combined with the fill gives me my thicker outline. So now what can I do? I select them both, and I'm going to use Pathfinder to merge them together. Boom. Keep selecting the wrong thing. There we go. Boom. And now I just have thicker outlines and just a single inside and outside edge. So whenever you're doing digital inking, think of the inside and the outside edge. In the same way, what if you inked it and you feel like your lines are too thick? Like, I like that cloud. I want this cloud to be a little less thick. I can select it. And then I can make a stroke. But instead of a black stroke, I'm going to make it a white stroke. And then I set the properties. And I can increase it. You see how it's thinning the line? And to prevent any spikes from happening, I'm going to click on the stroke and I'm going to round the corners. There we go. And there's only a little weirdness happening there. So now I do the exact same thing. I outline the stroke. Object, Path, Outline.